And I don't recommend this at home. This is a swarm. Can anyone tell me what's important about a swarm? Beekeeper people? Yes. Yeah, they're usually docile. So if you see this, it's not a panic-stricken situation. It is bees that have divided and they're homeless. They don't have anything to defend or guard. They just want to find a tree cavity to colonize and live in, or somewhere. Wait for a nice beekeeper to give them some beautiful equipment to live in. If this is happening in your bee yard, you kind of let your bees outgrow their space, right? So you definitely don't want to do that.
If you put out another hive, do they automatically go to that, or do they swarm?
They can. Italian honeybees, often if they have to have a smell of honey or comb. So if you had a box 20 or so feet away from them with some honeycomb that was already drawn, they might go to that box. They prefer higher nesting sites, about 10 feet off the ground is ordinarily kind of where they go.
What is the rack on the side of your hive?
This is for spare frames. So when you're inspecting, when you inspect your colony, you just take one frame out, and then it makes room so that you don't have to lift out every single frame. So it just gives you a frame rest, so this doesn't have to be down on the ground. And then you can pry all of your frames apart and easily inspect. Yes?
If I remember right, you don't want to have too much space for bees as well. I mean, you don't want them. You want to have them have enough, but you wouldn't want to start off your packing with a double super.
That's right.
Too much space from the deep end.
That's right. It sort of is you want to keep the space perfect. So when you first install your package, you just want to give them one box. And then at 60% full, then you would give them another box. You would take a frame of bees from the bottom box and put it up into that second box to entice them up. You want to make sure that the frame that you choose from the bottom has open cells with larvae that you can still see, and put it up there, because if they're capped already, there's nothing for the bees to do, and because they're worker bees, they're just looking for their next job. They want a job. And so if you provide open larvae for them, they'll go up into that box and then they'll start expanding out. Does that make sense? Yeah, you just put it in the middle, and then you put the other frames around it and put the lid on.
These things can eventually then expand beyond your ability to manage them. How do you curtail that? When do you decide to stop, and how do you stop them from growing?
Well, you'll just want to continue to add honey supers, and what happens is in June, everything peaks in June. The adult bee population will peak in June. The honey flow should be at a peak. And then for the month of June and into July, it will hold steady. And then there will be diminishing of forage and flowers, and they'll also be diminishing. The queen will stop laying so many eggs, so she slows down. So it's expansion and then contraction.
So the one hive you start, you'll add a few boxes over the season, and then at the end of the season you'll tear it back down to one box so they can start over the next year, or how does that work?
2 boxes, but yes. So you'll break it back down to 2 boxes high. So it's kind of just, expansion and then contraction, and then winter, and then expansion and contraction, and then winter.
I don't want 30 boxes 2 years.
No. And you may need to split your colony the following year, and that, there are ways to do that. Splitting is very healthy. If you don't want more than one colony, then you can find a friend that wants to be a beekeeper, or get with your local association people, and they'll help you out with what to do with your extra bees. So working with your honeybees, when you're doing your inspection, you want to stay calm. You want to move slowly. They're kind of very protective, and so if you're slamming through there because you've got things you've got to do, it's probably not the best day. When you're if you have a time constraint, then probably that's not a good day to inspect. You don't want to act like a bear. Bees are very sensitive to predation, and they know a bear, they know contrasting, they know skunks, which I have a terrible problem with at my house. They'll teach your dog a lesson, and dogs are smart. They won't bug them again, only one time. If you have a skunk problem, you want to elevate them off of the ground at least 18 inches. That's the best way. Mine are just on cinder blocks like these, and they're not quite high enough, and so I have to do other things to deter skunks. And some of them are not so nice.
You don't want them any higher than that. You couldn't have them like that on a table to prevent skunks stuff getting that high.
20 inches is plenty high, because then they reach up and they'll be vulnerable on their belly. They scoop bees out of the hive in the summer when the bees cluster on the front of the hive, and they'll eat an entire bee beard. So they'll really, really destroy your adult bee population. So I would recommend elevating them. You can do interesting things like you can put carpet strip on the landing board so that as they're scooping, their claws get stuck on the carpet strip. Weapons, tasers, electric fence doesn't work. Not for skunks. They seem to always be able to maneuver through somehow. Yes, they're nocturnal. So they're out when you're sleeping. Yeah, they're hard. The best way to deter them is that 20-inch table. You can reconfigure so that the bottom is on the top, but bees really prefer a bottom entrance to a top entrance. So I was going to experiment with that because I have such a significant skunk problem where I am. So I'll let you know. So you want to wear light colors and colors that are not contrasting. If you wear a big stripy zebra print out there, you're probably going to get some attention. And you want to make sure that bees don't get trapped. Make sure your zippers are zipped. And if you have a looser shirt, you want to put in a rubber band around your wrists. You can use Velcro straps for your jeans. Don't wear dumb shoes. Flip-flops. Don't wear those kind of things out into your bee yard. That's what I recommend. Just some shoes or boots or whatever. Bees like to be in dark, warm places, so if you have an open pant leg, it's an invitation. So you want to be careful there. You can use a bottle of sugar syrup instead of a smoker. I recommend that only in the spring, not after July. If you use that past July, you can set off a robbing problem where the bees kind of frenzy and get very excited about the sugar water that you're spraying. And in your smoker, like I said, you can use burlap, corn husks, wood shavings. You can get little wood pellets, and oftentimes I'll light 3 or 4 of those pellets, and then I'll put burlap and let it smoke. And it's a little bit too warm, so then I just put a layer of green grass on top, and it just billows nice. You don't want to use it as a blowtorch on your bees. That makes them mad. So just make sure that it's cool white smoke. And, put your hand in front and just make sure. If it's pleasant to you, then it'll be pleasant to them. And you can kind of watch the guard bees. If you lift the lid up and give the bees a little bit of smoke and then put the lid back down and let the smoke work on them for a couple of minutes, then that works as a distractant. It masks any kind of smell. You don't want to be stinky. Don't wear perfume or anything like that, but it will mask your smell. It will distract them. They go and eat honey. It gives them something to do. And then if you see bees lined up looking up at you, those are the little guard bees. And it's funny because they'll line up, they look like little aliens, and they start to wave their antennas, and they're visually oriented. So they're watching you. If it looks like they're watching you, they are. And give them a little bit of smoke. Not too much, but just enough. And then put the lid back down for a second and let it work on them. And you don't want to keep bees around livestock. If you have livestock, I have horses at my house, and so I keep my bees inside of livestock. Like I have a little bee yard, and it's got livestock fencing around. If you have horses, you want to make sure that that the bees' hives are far enough in that the horses can't clamp onto the wood, because you know how they loved wood, and they'll grab the top and pull it. So cows will rub on them, horses will rub on them. Goats don't seem to be too much of a bother, but the other larger animals are a problem. So you'll just want to make sure that they're safe from each other. Yes? Chickens are great. They kind of clean up the dead bees that are discarded, and the bees don't bother them. So, yes?
I have an arena. I want to put my beehive about 10 feet away from the arena. How sensitive are they to movement, to the effect of, if I'm working in the arena, are they going to be sensitive enough to where they're 10 feet away that they might attack?
They shouldn't be, and you can change their flight path by the direction that they're faced. So if you're 10 feet away from their front door, they might not like that. But if you move their front door here and you're to the side, that's fine, because they'll always enter that way and they won't come across you. You want to make sure that when you're choosing a position for your colony, you want to know that there's going to be a lot of activity here, and you don't want this blocked with anything. So, or you can block it. For instance, if you have you're too close to a fence line, you can change the flight path by putting a bush in front of them, or them in front of a bush, and then the bees will hover high, and then they'll drop down like this. They won't come, they won't make a beeline straight into the front door. So you can change their flight path a little bit.